A very quick intro for our special guest today. Dr. Amelia Anderson is co-founder and head of scientific computing at Cyclarity Therapeutics, which was previously known as Underdog Pharmaceuticals, if you guys went back a few years. Focus right now is on cyclodextrins targeting oxidized cholesterol, which contributes to different diseases, like probably atherosclerosis, probably the biggest one. And right now, if you check their LinkedIn, they talked about their first clinical trial, which is going to be happening later this year. So that's very exciting news. You might have seen Cyclarity on the NFX documentary earlier this year, maybe at a conference or two, like Rejuvenation Summits, or even Mia on A4LI's very own podcast. But before she was the star-studded scientist that she is today, she was doing her PhD in material science. She was also an undergrad, like the rest of us, many, many years ago. And the link to SRF would be that she was also an SRF Summer Scholar in the year of 2017. So thank you, Mia, for joining us today, and please take it away.
Thanks, Marvin. I see a lot of new faces here. I made you guys some slides. Let's see. Hopefully that will stay. So I'm curious how many of you are still in school or still undergrads for that matter? Is anybody still an undergrad? Are you all? Okay, we got a couple undergrads. Is anybody done with school? Like all done? Done your, yeah, okay. And then who's still in their post degree life here, planning on attending more school? Cool. Okay. Well, it's great to meet you all. And I personally, I just finished my PhD this year, and I was able to come in with this funding of this company, and really, it all comes together with SRF, and it all starts there. And I'm really everybody at SENS for kind of pushing me out the door here and getting this company founded. And it's been a really amazing experience. So it's great to meet you all. I'm happy to say that I'm now co-founder and the scientist at Cyclarity Therapeutics after being in the SRF Summer Scholar Program from 2017. So I'm just going to go over a little bit about Cyclarity, a little bit about myself, and how I was able to go from summer intern to employee and then employee to co-founder, how we navigated the beginning of our startup and getting that all set up, and more recently our path to the clinic. And then a few of the lessons that I've learned along the way. Obviously, there are many, many more that I can give in one presentation, but tried to give you some of the important ones. So Cyclarity Therapeutics is a biotech company. We're officially clinical stage now, as Marvin mentioned. We are working on curing age-related disease through damage repair. So this is a age-related disease kind of lens that we're able to look at cardiovascular disease through. We're using simple, direct, rationally designed drugs, which we designed with the help of computational calculations. So we are removing arterial plaque by specifically clearing a damage-causing oxysterol called 7-ketocholesterol, 7-KC. Because we're able to super specifically go after this molecule, which has been linked to not just heart disease, but many other diseases of aging, we can actually rehabilitate macrophages to allow them to do their jobs once again. So when they become inundated with lipids and other junk, basically, that they're trying to clear from your arteries, they become foam cells. And those foam cells are sick and unable to do their job, clearing the plaque, and actually die and become part of the plaque. So this becomes this aggressive cycle of just increasing the amount of plaque over time by the accumulation of many different things, but particularly oxidized cholesterol and particularly 7-KC. So what we did was we took a well-known safe compound called cyclodextrins, which are commonly used in drug delivery, and we engineered them to be really specific at encapsulating this particular kind of cholesterol. And we did this with computational modeling, and this different perspective on cardiovascular disease really gives us an advantage in the field. There's not a lot of good solutions for cardiovascular disease right now. You probably know someone or multiple people on statins right now, and they are not the most fun drug to go on. And there are just not many good options besides that. And doctors really prescribe them to almost everybody who has any type of even preliminary cardiovascular disease. And they work to some extent, but they don't truly reverse any of the damage that's going on in our arteries. And so we can use our age-related disease perspective to say, well, if we believe that we can rehabilitate pieces of our immune system or of our natural mechanisms that are there to keep us alive and keep us healthy, then we can apply that to cardiovascular disease. And the idea that is that we can go after not just cardiovascular disease, but also other diseases of aging as well, with the same kind of paradigm of getting rid of 7-keto cholesterol. But we chose cardiovascular disease because of the huge unmet need and the huge possibilities that are associated with this disease. So like I said, we just hit the clinic, or we just submitted our clinical package. So we're hoping to go into humans this year. And we hope that our drug will help more than just cardiovascular disease as well. But that's our main indication at this time. So a little bit about me. As I said, I'm the head of scientific computing at Cyclarity Therapeutics and a co-founder. So my job is to build an automated computational platform for cyclodextrin modeling. So cyclodextrins are useful for all kinds of things as far as encapsulating and solvating different molecules. So my job is to create a platform that can model those in an efficient way. They're much different than what is typically modeled. So it's been a lot of kind of ground up building of this technology to allow us to really understand how our complexes form, deform, and how well they stay together. I was a summer scholar back in 2017. Then I got my BS in biochemistry from UC Santa Barbara, 2018. I got my master's in computational modeling and theoretical chemistry from the Universidad de Santiago de Compostela in 2021. Doing that during COVID was unexpected and not very fun. But luckily it was computational based and I was able to do a lot of it remotely. And then just this summer, I got my PhD in material science and applied physics from the same university. I'm a SpongeBob fan, an animal lover, and a tree hugger, always. Animation's good. Here we go. So to start off, I was at UC Santa Barbara, go Gauchos. Some of my main recommendations for if you're still in school is really to get into the lab when you're in college. I had a wonderful experience in my lab at UCSB. We were working, and it's weird how things come back around, you know, like we were working with these things called siderophores, which are also kind of for capturing things. And so they go around and they scavenge iron for bacteria. And that was just really interesting. And it kind of turned me away from biology and towards chemistry. Nothing against biology, but I think for me, chemistry was really, really valuable for understanding the chemical mechanisms that I was going to try to model in the future. So I think having that college experience in the lab, as well as good mentors who will push you towards the things that that they find valuable and that hopefully you find valuable as well, is really important. And so good mentors and people that you get along with on a personal level is really important as well. And when you're an intern, I think being curious, motivated, and enthusiastic is the most important thing. Now, when I look for interns, I really look for those qualities. And I think it's really important for interns to be able to kind of blaze their own path with me by their side, rather than me taking their hand and showing them what to do. You know, it's great if they will do what they are told and, you know, follow all the instructions and all of that. But it's really wonderful if they can come with a completely new perspective and kind of change the project. And so when I was an intern, we kind of assimilated some crystal structure data that was actually really important for doing the computational modeling that I was doing. And so we were basically able to see the type of complex that is actually shown in the crystal structure was not exactly what we were modeling. And when we did model that proper structure, we were able to emulate it in a real way and actually make that structure more likely to happen based on the computational models that I saw. I was able to stay on remotely from my senior year because of the computational aspects of my work. And so that's another piece of advice that I have, is that if you want to continue working on a project, you should just ask and see if there's a way that you can make it work. And if you're doing good work and you're with good mentors, they will help you along the way. And it's really important to just stay what you need and make it clear that you want to stay if it's possible, and people will work with you to try to make it happen. So this is my my class of 2017. We're all so little. With a few of them. That's good. So for SENS Research Foundation, I stayed on for a year as an employee, a little less than a year, when we decided that this project was worth actually turning into a company. That was a big decision, and that was a decision that we made kind of as a group of 3 co-founders. It was me, Michael Cope, and Matthew O'Connor, who's Oki. If you've ever seen Oki present at these LongX events, he's all over in the longevity community. But the decision to turn the company, or to turn the project into a company, was a big one for me as well, because I knew I wanted to continue my education. I had just gotten my bachelor's, and I knew that I needed more education to really learn about what I was doing. Conveniently, during that year that I was doing my senior year at school, Oki met some wonderful professors at the University of Santiago de Compostela in Spain, and they agreed to do a pilot project with me remotely, doing remote work before it was cool. And it went really well. We were all really happy with how well the pilot project went, and they agreed to kind of continue mentoring me, and they allowed me to enroll in the master's degree. And so a large part of the company was continuing my education as well, and making sure that we had a large education emphasis in the company. And so that was a really important part of deciding to turn this project into a company. The other really important part was getting our patents filed is a huge deal. It's a lot of work. It was really rewarding work in the end. It involved a lot of computational modeling, because you can use computational models to kind of give your research more, to kind of you have to have data for all the claims that you're making. And so if you can at least show some computational models, then you're more likely to get the claims that you're asking for. So like I said, it's a huge amount of work. There's so many legal paragraphs that, and it's kind of confusing, but it's really, really important that you get your patents in line when you're founding a company. Then for funding, we were pretty lucky to be a part of this SRF family, and we had connections, and we were able to get some early funding. I would advise that you are very conscious of your contracts and your agreements with these investors, because they will come back if you have granted them certain rights and powers. Like, you should just consider that this is your company, and you need to make sure that you have control of what happens to that company in the future. And even if it seems like you don't care right now, just sign the paper. I need I need money in the bank. It will come back. So think about those things. My personal favorite part about building the company was building a team. Getting to choose who you work with is really amazing. And being able to build that from the ground up is just such a great experience. And I'm happy that most of our original employees are still with us, and we've only grown from there. And so building a team is just so wonderful. And it's really important. People who are going part of your team for hopefully a long time. They're going to help you build your technology. They're going to be the founding group. And so make sure that those people are good people who are there for you and there for your company and for the science, of course. The final thing is having future plans. They call it future plans because they're like, well, if this works, what are you going to do next? In a lot of ways, it's like, if this doesn't work, what are you going to do next? So consider that you need to have a few different things kind of in the bank to allow yourself to really be a company. So that's the patents kind of come into that as well, and making sure that you have kind of multiple angles to come at this and convince investors as well as the patent office that this is something that you can really defend. This is the original team. There's Oki and Mike, my professors, Angel and Rebecca, and the underdog team. So we used to bring our dogs into the office at SENS. I don't think you can do that anymore, but that's my dog Bodhi and Mike's dog Magic. So navigating the startup life was something crazy. I was in school, we had new investors, we were building a team, we were working on our patents, and then COVID happened. It was just a crazy time. It's a crazy time anyway. And then you add COVID on top of it, and it was just a maze, really. But it was something that we were able to get through as a team, and being able to lean back on those people that you've chosen to be a part of your team is really important. So having people that you can rely on and investors that you can rely on is key. And as I said, I was also working in education, and everybody was it was all magically kind of intertwined into one major goal, which was to get this cyclodextrin-based drug to the clinic. And so navigating all of that was really difficult, but also really fun. And so I would say, if you find yourself in a position where you're at a brand new startup, hang on tight. It's going to be a wild ride, but it's really, really worth it in the end. The one interesting thing that I found coming from academia and I mean, coming from my education into the startup life was that you learn in school, publish or perish. Like, you have to get everything into a peer-reviewed journal to make it worth anything. That's somewhat true when you're in the industry, and it is really important to have good science backing up your ideas and your molecules or your drugs. But there's also kind of this added element of confidentiality and how much you really want to give away, as well as the patents. And so understanding how all of that works in the context of what you're working on is really important. And being able to have the solid science and the pedigree kind of having publications, but then also being able to keep your secrets and your patent molecules yours is really important as well. So that was something that was interesting to learn for me. But each company kind of has its own problems and challenges with this. But I think it's something that they don't teach you in school, and that I had to learn on the fly. Is our team growing? We went from 5 people to 10 people here, and we've even added a few more since then. So we rebranded to Cyclarity, which was a request of one of our investors. We begrudgingly did it, but it was a long debate over what to change the name to. We really liked Underdog, but Cyclarity it was. And we also moved up to the Buck Institute, which is here in NorCal, or I mean North Bay, Marin. And so that whole path was also complicated, but really fun. Moving all of our staff and our lab up north was really exciting for us because the Buck is a wonderful community of like-minded scientists in the aging field. And if you haven't been up there, highly recommend visiting. It's a really cool building as well. And I also recently got my PhD in material science and applied physics. And so that was with the same professors that Oki met in Tokyo so many years ago. And so it's been amazing to have the privilege of working with them for so long. And I adore them. And they still work with us as consultants. So I think it's really important if you are on the path to a clinical stage company or drug, it's really important to use your network and allow people to hold you up and allow people to give you advice and to tell you how to do this, because if you've never done it before, it is really not self-explanatory. There is a whole language of acronyms that they use. That was like learning a whole language. And it was something that I really wasn't prepared for on a mental level. We have an amazing team, like I said, so it really depended on them to get us there. And we did face multiple challenges along the way. And I think finding creative solutions to some of those rigid rules. There are a lot of rules and regulations, obviously, getting to the clinic for good reason. And so if you feel like you are an exception or you have a solution that maybe they haven't, this kind of, in aging, we're coming at this from a completely different perspective that isn't necessarily accepted in the common common knowledge of how drugs and drug design works. So I think you have to allow yourself to be persistent and to find creative solutions to some of those roadblocks that they will put up, and expect those. So they're going to be there, and so if you can get past them, and you can, then you will be able to move on. And I think some of those creative solutions were really key, both from our chemists and from our biologists to getting us to where we are now. So just a few of the lessons that I wish someone had told me before I had gotten into all of this. I think it's really important that you find your niche and your community. There's always layers of science, and how deeply you go and where you sit kind of in those layers. They're all important, and they're all necessary to getting to reaching the goal of getting your drug to the clinic or whatever your goal is. Every layer is important, but which one is yours is so valuable to identify, and then you can find your community within that layer and outside of that layer. So I think of it as like layers and columns. So each person kind of occupies a square in the grid, and you have to be able to talk to people who are on your layer this way, as well as on the level this way. That's the biologist, the chemist, the regulatory person, the CEO, all of those people have to be able to communicate. And then all of the computational chemists in the whole cyclodextrin community, for example, for me, it's really valuable to have connections and be able to relate to them on many different topics and come to them with concerns and just talk about science with people who speak the same science that you do. There are also a lot of really useful non-science skills when it comes to founding a company. Pitching, so that's presenting, debating, and storytelling. It's really important, like being able to talk to an investor who probably has millions of dollars who invested in this and that, and it's really intimidating. And also never pitch to your favorite investor first, because it takes practice to pitch. And no matter you need at least a few rounds of that before you're feeling confident enough to actually get someone to listen to you. It sounds hard, but it's true. So be patient with yourself and allow yourself to have lots of practice with that. Also financial analysis and tax law, like how shares work and how the taxes apply to that, and all of the different motivations behind what it's crazy. I still don't really get it. Mike threw me into the deep end with something the other day, and I just I can understand computational chemistry, but financial analysis just goes over my head a lot of the time. So I'm still learning a lot of these things as well, but I wish I knew them better. So these kinds of things are really useful. Patent law is another one. Doing the patents at first it just made me go cross-eyed because all of the legalese, just the language that they use is completely different from scientific language, and really complex, but also simple in some ways. It's just something worth taking a class on if you have the opportunity, or at least doing some outside research on that would be really helpful. And finally, a random one is Photoshop, and just being able to put together images that look nice, putting, not for image manipulation or anything, but just to make slides and presentations and stuff like that. And putting all your data in one place and making it look nice is something much easier said than done in a lot of ways. Pitching makes perfect. I guess I said that. Give yourself practice and do it again and again and again, and pitch to anyone who will listen to you, and then try it on the investor, and then go to an investor you actually care about after that. The next one is never be afraid to ask for what you want. I think for myself, I was often really nervous, like with the education thing, saying I really want to work for you to do this and make our project into a company, but I need to get my degree. Like I don't know what I'm going to do after that if I don't get my degree. So and that's just one example of coming to your boss and saying, I want to do this, but I need this in order to make that work. And a lot of times people will work with you to make that happen. And if they say no, the worst thing they can say is say no, and that's fine. Just move on. Everyone is human. That just means that anybody can make mistakes. Anybody can come up with a logic for anything, especially in computational stuff. It's like there's precedent, but there's a lot of room for new perspectives, and also for mistakes. And so I think that you should always be open-minded about what people want. Everybody has a motivation. Everybody has things that they want, things that they dislike, and just remember that they're people just like you, and that makes it a lot less intimidating. There's so many more lessons that I've learned, but I'm gonna stop there and let you guys ask some questions. I have a couple of videos though first. This is one of my favorites. These are I don't know if you can hear it, but it's making the sounds. No, it makes the Pac-Man sound. It shows not encapsulating regular cholesterol, but taking 7-KC in a strong complex and not going after something like vitamin D, and being really specific for different molecules. And then this is our VR application. This is what a cyclodextrin dimer complex looks like moving, and that's actual simulation. And if you ever come visit us at the back, I can put you in the goggles and you can give it a try. And all of our stuff has dog homages. So we try to keep the underdog alive. I think I'm gonna go ahead and drop it there.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, thank you so much, Amelia. That was very, round of applause. Liam's got the right idea. Where's that little icon there? Yeah, that was great. That was amazing. Also, I just wanted to comment on the fact that I saw the little 3D rendered dog in the back of the VR application. The nice homage to Underdog, of course. So we're going to open up the floor to questions from the rest of the audience as well in a second, but we have a couple of set questions that me, Marvin, and Denise had come up with. So just to start off with, and maybe I'm asking this in the wrong way, but if I'm correct, Underdog came out as a spin-off and rebranded to Cyclarity, right? So with
Yes,
creating,
exactly.
yeah. So in my own personal experience, I have not had opportunity to spin off a company in a sense. Most of my ventures have been, I guess, not coming out of another lab or sense. So I assume there might have been individual or unique challenges that come up with creating a spin-off and a company out of it. So were there any unique challenges you personally faced when creating Cyclarity, whether that came in differentiating yourself from the research that was being done before the project before, like shared IP, anything of the sort?
Yeah. I mean, shared IP was definitely something that we had to face and figure out who owns the IP and how exactly all of that works. I mean, Mike and Oki had been at SENS for 10 plus years, so it was really hard. But it was a tough decision for them, especially to decide that this was worth spinning off into a company and leaving that that long time. I mean, Oki was the head of science and research basically, and Mike was the CEO. So it was a hit to a company that they loved. They still love, and they had to battle with that a bit and find their replacements and these kinds of things. I mean, we all left in good standing, and so they were able to help with that. And we continued to live at SRF for about a year or so before we moved up to the Buck. And so it was a pretty smooth transition from my perspective, but I know that for Mike and Oki and for SENS, it was a big change. And so going through that was not easy all the time, but I think everybody at SENS had a lot of faith in this project and had a lot of faith in us. And so that really helped us to get to where we are now.
So yeah, I mean, everyone at SENS is so cool so far, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more spin-offs in the future to come. I
Yeah.
guess maybe this is a personal question, but I only maybe heard of cyclodextrins conveniently maybe 1.5 months ago. And what I did know very little before talking to you was that they were mainly used for like vehicles, like maybe for like drug delivery or maybe agriculture, where I never really saw them as a therapeutic tool. So I'm curious, at what point did you guys sort of realize that, hey, cyclodextrins are like, that's what we really want to focus on? Was that something that came really early on when you were doing your undergrad or summer scholar research? Or was that something that came out of, I don't know, some further project or more research later on?
So the 7KC target was a project that SENS had been working for, I'm not sure how long, but long before I became an intern. And they wanted to go after 7-ketocholesterol, knowing that that was one of these damage accumulating molecules. And at some point along the line, also before I joined, they kind of zeroed in on cyclodextrins were useful for solubilizing 7-ketocholesterol. So it's a really sticky hydrophobic molecule that just builds up. And cyclodextrins are useful in drug delivery. A lot of drugs are like that as well. They don't dissolve very well. They are, and so the cyclodextrins are really useful for increasing bioavailability or using them in formulation. But if you deliver an empty cyclodextrin, then that can go after various small hydrophobic molecules that like cholesterols. And so the challenge was figuring out which one would specifically encapsulate 7-ketocholesterol over. So I was in this project where we were trying all these different types of cyclodextrins and just in a pretty crude turbidity assay. And that's when I had also just learned about computational chemistry. I was like, can I like try a computational project? And that was part of the original beginning of the design of specific cyclodextrins. So they're commonly used. You can find them almost everywhere. They're in Febreze, fun fact. But we were able to design them to specifically go after 7KC. I don't know if that answers your question, but okay.
And okay, I guess I'm kind of broadening this question up a little bit. Everybody comes from, I guess, different aspects of science when they're entering longevity. And within the longevity and biotech field as a whole, what do you think is like kind of the biggest roadblock today? And I guess what is it that's stopping people from even chasing an entrepreneurship journey? Why is it that, there still tends to be that trend of people going for their PhD, continuing in research, not really taking a chance to maybe do a spin-off or separate off and do something unique?
I mean, I think that's a really individual question. I think as a scientist, you're gonna lean towards education in general. I think you're right in saying that it's a leap, and it's just human nature to not necessarily want to take that leap. But I think that if you have the faith in the underlying mechanism, then you're more willing to make that leap. And so you can almost counter that with more education or realm that you're working in. I think really understanding what you're working on and having the faith in it is part of that. And I think the other part is that startups don't really see the possibility of sending their interns or new employees to school while they work on this. I mean, my PhD project was how I helped design this drug. And so people don't see how you can combine these things and make them into one cohesive project. And it does take a bit of work and a little bit of luck and finding the right people and these kinds of things, but it's possible. And I think people are just not inclined to do that right now.
Okay, and with that asked, will you leave some time for everyone else? Open up the floor. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, or just type it in the chat. Once again, as I always say in our fireside chats, there's no such thing as a bad question. If you want to ask me about her favorite flavor of ice cream, feel free to do so. There's no such thing as a bad question. Anything is okay.
I'd love to ask a question, Mia, about timing. All of these things, and I know a lot of these pathways are fraught with luck and, the timing tends to be part of it. But how did you decide that the timing was right for each of these decisions, to go back to grad school, to do the startup, to, how did you make those decisions about timing?
The timing kind of came to me in a lot of ways. It just, I mean, and it was a combination of the timing working out, but also being able to kind of have an influence on that timing, and being able to go back to my senior year of UCSB while still working on the project was really great, and I think was really pivotal to allowing me to stay on the project. And I think Oki saw the value in keeping the computational side going, also from a patent perspective, and having as many computational experiments as we could. And so I really thank Oki and Mike for allowing me to do this, and for helping me to make it happen. I always knew that I wanted to go back to grad school, and so it was kind of a requirement for me, honestly, that like I'm only going to do this if I can go back to school too. And they agreed to let me do that. And yeah, I think it was such a crazy time in your life where you graduate from college and then you're like, okay, now what? Like either I go apply to grad school or I take this. I took a year to work for SENS, which then just turned into Underdog, and so it was really some luck and some decision making, but I feel like that's it's impossible to ever get the timing right. So sometimes you just have to do it.
All right, we have time for one more question if anyone has one. If not, I have a question. Oh, no, Lada, there we go.
It's a curious one, so maybe you can go after me as well. I was just curious about two things. First, what was the most challenging thing in setting up the first team for your company, and then how did your role and approach change while the company was growing?
Challenges of the team. Let's see. It was just going through and spending the time to really get to know our candidates, and then knowing that once we committed to someone, like that was who we were going to have. And so it really took a lot of commitment on both our end and the applicant's end of just making sure that this was the right match, and being very clear, you know, this is a startup, this comes with risk, this is background to it. Do you understand it? Like, do we understand you? Do you have the experience that we need as far as like, can you run the assays that we need to run? Can you build, you know, can you manage people who you will have to bring on to help you with that? And so it was a big time commitment, and we were all willing to give that time because we knew it was so important. But I think you can so easily just kind of say, oh, I found someone, they're fine. But if you don't really spend the time to actually choose that person, kind of handpick them, then that's they're going to be working with you for a long time, hopefully. So you really want to make sure that they're a match.
That was a great.
There was a question. Sorry. What was
Sorry, you just cut out there, Mia. What were you saying?
Did I answer both your questions? Sorry.
Oh yeah,
Sorry. Did I
you
answer
definitely
both your questions?
You definitely did. You actually,
Okay.
a lot of your question was great. It's a great transition to our next portion of the workshop. So first of all, before we move on, everyone, I just want to say a great thank you to Amelia once again for coming on. If you guys have any questions, what's the best way to reach out to you, Amelia?
Yeah, I was gonna say I can put my email in the chat, and y'all can email me anytime. I'm happy to answer any other questions you have. And thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much.